So yeah, I'm a huge weeb.
Does Samuel L. Jackson like anime?
Yes, I do. Hentai too.
I don't think that's much of a surprise to any of you who've been watching my content over the years. I'm also the Pacific War channel guy, so I got to thinking, how does modern Japanese anime depict the Pacific War? Now, I'm not going to sit here listing all of the Pacific War animes there are. Instead, through my extensive weeb historic research, I basically came up with 4 categories that quasi-breaks it down as a sort of genre. Thus, please join me as we dig into the world of But before we jump into the categories, to give you a more quick answer, in general, modern Japanese anime depicts the Pacific War using a few specific themes. The largest one is trauma, notably the suffering of Japanese civilians during the firebombing and atomic bomb campaigns. After that, it's a lot of tech fetish stuff, you know, glorifying warships and aircrafts because, well, you can't really glorify the soldiers.
You don't want to be like this. This is disgusting. This is awful in every way.
Yeah, it might get a bit awkward there. Not a good look. Other major themes consist of questioning nationalism and militarism, promoting heroism and sacrifice. But above all else, anime will avoid at all costs any mention of anything related to war crimes committed by the Japanese during 1931 to 1945.
It never happened.
And I mean goddamn, try to find a Japanese anime uttering the word Nanjing or Unit 731.
And you think, well, hell is real. It's like, read about Unit 731 and then come and tell me you don't believe hell is real.
The first category is the most obvious. It's the anti-war one. Or perhaps you can describe it as trauma-induced cultural therapy. Most anime depicting the Pacific War chooses to showcase the consequences of the war, i.e. the suffering of Japanese civilians. What about the suffering of Chinese civilians? Stop asking questions.
It's an urban legend that never happened.
Within this category lies the Holy Trinity, Grave of the Fireflies, Barefoot Gen, and In This Corner of the World. All 3 of these films deal with the atomic bomb or firebombing of the Japanese home islands, and the resulting human suffering. Each holds a harrowing account that brings you to tears. And no worries, I'm not going to spoil these films.
Should I do it? I'm gonna do it!
Barefoot Gen deals with Gen Nakioka and his family struggling to survive in Hiroshima during the final days of the Pacific War. On August the 6th of 1945, the Enola Gay drops the atomic bomb, killing nearly everyone Gen knows. The rest of the anime deals with Gen struggling to aid his mother, Kime, and his baby sister, Tomoko. Similarly, in Grave of the Fireflies, Seita and his sister, Setsuko, lose their mother during the firebombing of Kobe, and they're forced to live with their distant aunt. Feeling cheated by his aunt, Seita leaves his aunt's care with his sister to try and live it out in an abandoned bomb shelter, where the two struggle to survive. Most of you have probably seen this Studio Ghibli classic, and well, it's a real tearjerker to be sure. I don't want to spoil any more of it. But if you want to know more about this one, I conveniently have a in-depth review of it. Warning, you will cry. In this corner of the world, a young girl named Suzu marries a man she barely knows before moving to Kure, a large naval port 15 miles away from Hiroshima. During some air raids in 1945, Suzu loses her brother, her niece, and her right hand. Then she witnesses the atomic bombing of Hiroshima, and finds out most of her loved ones perished.
That's rough, buddy.
Suzu plunges into a very deep depression, as I think all of us would, and then she lives under the US occupation period. But she eventually regains a passion for life by acquiring a new sense of family. Honestly, this one's a very beautiful film. Hey guys, this is Craig from the Pacific War Channel. Please don't forget to check out my YouTube membership or my Patreon account over at www.patreon.com/thepacificwarchannel, where you can join the ranks and gain access to a hell of a lot of goodies. At the base minimum, you get access to the exclusive monthly podcast, early access to all of my content, voting rights for what subjects I will tackle next, and at higher tiers, I have much more goodies to come. So please click that link and check it out. In all 3 of these films, they deal with the absolute horror that was the bombings of Japan and human suffering caused by them. For those of you who don't know, by the end of the Pacific War, the Japanese home island suffered extensive bombing campaigns aimed at forcing the Japanese leadership to surrender. Major cities were devastated by firebombing conducted by aircraft such as B-29 superfortresses. It's estimated that approximately 147,000 bombs were dropped by B-29s, with 90% of these occurring in the last 5 months of the war. This relentless assault led to the destruction of 2.5 million houses, displaced 8.5 million people, and resulted in the deaths of roughly 425,000 Japanese civilians, with an additional 470,000 wounded due to the firebombing and 2 atomic bombs. It goes without saying, the Japanese people have a unique wound that persists to influence their art to this very day. I think you would be hard-pressed to find another cultural representation with such an anti-war impact. The other 2 films I would toss into this category are The Boy and the Heron and Giovanni's Island. The Boy and the Heron involves a Japanese youth, Hisako, who loses his mother during the firebombing of Tokyo. His father, Shoichi, an air munitions factory owner, marries his dead wife's sister, and they move to the countryside. Asiko then finds himself pulled into a fantasy world by a heron, who kinda reminds me of Danny DeVito for some reason.
I am not a human being! I am an animal! Cold-blooded!
He undergoes a coming-of-age journey where he learns to overcome his selfishness and live for others. The fantasy world is actually an abstract version of militaristic Imperial Japan, and there is a narrative of forging a better path. I am not gonna lie, this one is a bit deep, kind of the artsy-fartsy type you might say. Requires a bit of knowledge of 1930s and 1940s Japan. I actually forced my wife to watch it, and she said, and I quote,
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Giovanni's Island is a bit more unique than the others. It's about 2 brothers, Junpei and Kanta, who live in Shugoten Island. At the very end of the Pacific War, the USSR occupied this island, forcing their family to live in a stable as a Russian family occupies their home. Eventually, the brothers end up in an internment camp at Mecha, waiting to be deported to the home islands. The boys struggle to survive as their entire world is uplifted. So yeah, the overall theme is the hardship and struggle to survive what was an extremely traumatic time. The second category could be called Mecha.
What the heck? That's a mobile suit! It's a Gundam!
It hyper-focuses on the technology of the war rather than the human beings. In general, the vast majority of Japanese anime that depicts the Pacific War tend to highlight technology and avoid enemy soldiers. You see B-29s bombing Japan, warship battles, aircraft dogfights, and so forth. It's pretty rare to see Japanese soldiers firing upon Allied soldiers. This is simply because the Japanese are self-aware. The majority of their actions in the Asia-Pacific were not a good look.
The Japanese rape and kill people in Nanking! The only thing Japanese love more than killing people is killing themselves!
So like any good artist, they try to depict themselves facing a nameless, faceless, steel enemy. One of the classic ones that comes to mind in this genre was part of an OVA known as The Cockpit, that tells 3 stories. One of those stories is called Sonic Boom Squadron. Yes, this is where the meme comes from. Here, Ensign Nogami is flying a rocket-powered kamikaze, Oka, in raids against US carriers. On his first raid, he actually fails, but he gets a second chance and he successfully crashes into the carrier's superstructure, surprisingly not exploding right away, before the Oka explodes and sinks the carrier. It's a little bit of what was it all for kind of moment. The Wind Rises loosely follows the real story of Jiro Hirokoshi, who developed the Mitsubishi A6M Zero Fighter. The story begins with his early life, his education, and his work in an aircraft manufacturing plant. However, if you're really interested in the story of how the Zero Fighter came to be, I actually wrote an episode for Kings and Generals not too long ago, so please go check it out. This story spans numerous years, showcasing how different nations went about aviation development, and involves a human story with Jiro's romance with Naoko, suffering from tuberculosis. Yet by far the most popular Pacific War mecha of all time is of course the legendary space battleship. It's one of the most influential animes of all time, directly influencing the Gundam franchise.
Hiro, I know too much about you. Are you still gonna kill me?
Yeah.
Evangelion, and numerous other mecha animes. Its plot is, well, batshit crazy. In the year 2199, an alien race known as the Gamillas unleash radioactive meteorite bombs against Earth. Yeah, it's basically like Starship Troopers. Humanity retreats deep underground into their cities, and they're being driven into radioactive extinction. Earth's space fleet is hopelessly outclassed by the Gamillas. Then the humans uncover a faster-than-light engine design, and they receive a message from a planet known as Iskandar, who claim that they have a device that can cleanse the Earth of its radiation. Thus, Earth builds a massive spaceship from the wreckage of the World War II Japanese super battleship Yamato. Yeah, they just kind of scoop her from the ocean floor and basically make her spaceworthy. They give her a new warp drive, wave, motion guns, and such. Then Battleship Yamato departs on a grand Star Trek-like journey for Iskandar. There are numerous shows, remakes, movies, and spin-offs that showcase the adventures of Space Battleship Yamato. In them, there's often a segment dedicated to depicting the real sinking of the Imperial Japanese naval ship that was the Yamato. For those who don't know, Yamato was sent out on a suicide mission known as Operation Tengo, alongside some escorts to try and stop the Allied forces assembling off Okinawa. The show symbolizes this suicide mission, with Yamato becoming the last hope for Earth in its suicide mission to reach Iskandar. Throughout the series, there are countless references to the Pacific War. Again, the team behind this one probably thought to themselves, well, we can't just have it fight the Americans, so let's just toss aliens at it.
Welcome to Earth.
Now, despite the comical nature of the plot, the original show actually had a really deep narrative that glorified the military and the men who fought and died for Japan, tinged with justifications and some remorse. It really represented how the post-war Japanese generation was still coming to terms with everything that had happened.
It never happened.
Numerous references to the Pacific War can be found, such as kamikaze and banzai moments, the catastrophic nature of the atomic bomb, and radiation, the spirit of Bushido, and a last-ditch effort to save Japan, or in this case, the Earth. There's a real sense of irony as the crew of the Yamato discover numerous peoples of different planets suffering under the tyranny of the Gamillas, and they try to save them all. It's literally the exact opposite of what Japan did in the Pacific War. But the end of the original series did deliver a clear statement on the morality of Imperial Japan, and urged the audience to be better than their fathers.
You've got to do better.
It goes without saying, boys love tanks, aircraft, and warships of World War II. The Japanese are no different. Thus, an entire industry was forged. While Japan would be hard-pressed to show national pride in the war effort, they certainly can instead showcase Japanese ingenuity. The next category is alternate history. And oh yes, everyone knows I love this genre. I am an alternate history hub fanboy. By far the most famous of these is Zipang, where the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force ship Mirai goes out on a training exercise only to be traveled back in time to June the 4th of 1942. Yes, the first day of the Battle of Midway. And yes, this is Japan's version of the final countdown.
Nimitz disappeared in the Pacific and reappeared December 6, 1941, off the coast of Pearl Harbor. The final countdown.
Stop being boring!
What do these future sailors do with their extremely advanced helicopter defense destroyer from the year 2000? They decide to do nothing that will change history. Yes, it's just Japan's version of the final countdown.
Such wasted potential.
God damn it, why can't we have nice things? Despite their intentions to be beta cook, they do gradually get drawn into the war, but they resist openly aiding Japan the entire time. A large part of the show revolves around the Mirai crew trying to convince the Japanese to evacuate Guadalcanal, and eventually sees the Mirai face against the USS Wasp. For those of you who don't know your Pacific War history, well, this show will actually please you, as the writers certainly did the research. There are a lot of history lessons built into this show. The anime leaves on a cliffhanger, alluding to the Japanese discovering oil in Manchuria, an absolute game changer for the Second Sino-Japanese War. Any mention of the rape and murder of millions of Chinese civilians? Not so much.
It's an urban legend that never happened.
The next one is Konpeki no Kantai, or Azure Lane. Now, unlike the
Beta bear!
Zipang or the Cook in the final countdown, this one sees someone go back in time who straight up does want to mess with the timeline. In 1943, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto is aboard his last flight in our timeline, known as Operation Vengeance, where the Americans shot down his aircraft, killing him. Instead of dying, however, Yamamoto wakes up to find he is back on May the 28th of 1905 during the legendary Battle of Tsushima. He discovers he has retained his knowledge, and he decides he's going to change the course of history for Japan. Because he's based, unlike those
Beta bear!
in Zipang in the final countdown, he spends years spearheading a massive naval construction program, building advanced battleships, supercarriers, and even nuclear submarines built off the real I-400 Sentoku design. In late 1941, he leads a successful coup d'etat. For those of you who mentioned how I kept mispronouncing that in the last episode, I have no excuse, I'm an idiot. Against General Hideki Tojo. Afterwards, he installs Lieutenant General Yasuburo Otaka as Prime Minister and initiates the attack on Pearl Harbor. However, here he makes many changes. He declares war in advance, and he unleashes a perfected nighttime aircraft carrier strike. They destroy Pearl Harbor's fuel depots, shipyards, submarine pens, infrastructure, and shipping. He then regroups the Kido Butai 2.0 to destroy the 3 US Pacific carriers that are trying to join the fight. And then after all of that, he invades Hawaii. With Hawaii as their main forward base in the North Pacific, the Japanese easily conquer the Asia Pacific, unleashing a greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere that, unlike in our timeline, does not involve racism, violence, rape, and tyranny, and so forth. Major campaigns are fought in the Tasman Sea and the Torres Strait, where the Japanese Navy cripples the American Pacific Fleet, before Japan begins attacking the American West Coast. A Japanese submarine carrier flotilla destroys the Panama Canal's Gatun locks, and then the Japanese unleash a long-range surgical airstrike against the Manhattan Project's Los Alamos facilities. This literally gives President FDR a stroke, leaving Truman to take charge, and he sues for peace.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
And now, you would assume that's the end of the show, but no.
Go big or go home.
After that, Mustache Man becomes concerned with Japan's rapid growth and technological advances, and he decides to declare war on Japan. Japan immediately hits Germany's atomic weapons research facility with intercontinental flying boat bombers. Then a campaign erupts in India, with Japan allying with Britain of all people, and the Soviets get rolled by the Germans as the US joins the war against Germany, and Japan gives America Hawaii back, and it's crazy. Eventually, the Japanese turn the tide in the battle for the Atlantic, and Germany is defeated by 1950. So yeah, Konpeki no Kantai is Japan's conservative wet dream. And all done without any mention of war crimes and atrocities, just like a Japanese history textbook today.
Not a chance.
In general, these alternate history animes are guilty pleasures seeking to rewrite the past and perhaps showcase a sense of remorse for what Japan did. Then there's a show like Gate. Has anyone seen this one? Funniest shit I've seen in a while. It's just Japanese conservatives having a field day. Like, yeah, let's bully the piss out of some medieval losers. Category number 4 is by far the most important one, and of course, that being anime girls transforming into warships from World War II.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
It gives me no pleasure to acknowledge the existence of the blasphemous world of Kantai Collection or Azure Lane. God damn it, why does this shit even exist? Why did you creep your way into my world of warships?
Look how they massacred my boy.
I'ma just read the literal Wikipedia plot synopsis on Kantai Collection. In a world where humanity faces the threat of the Abyssal Fleet, which has taken over the seas, special human girls who don weaponized outfits and possess the spirit of historical naval vessels known as kamutsu, literally meaning fleet girls or ship girls, are the only ones capable of countering them. The kamutsu live together at a naval base where they spend their everyday lives as they begin training for battle. Someone was paid to write this. The series initially follows the World War II Japanese destroyer Fubuki. Then in the second season it switches to the Shigeri, following a storyline reminiscent of the last 2 years of the Pacific War. For example, the baddies fight the girlies at Leyte Gulf. You're probably asking yourself, why did I include this? Well, if it gets people interested in the Pacific War, I guess it fits. But straight up, the men responsible for thinking this one up belong in jail. And I mean like literally, most of these girls are underage lolicons who belong in some guy's PC folder beside his taxes folder.
You can see this is an example of the kind of structure that I'm referring to.
What? If you know, you know.
You like popsicles?
Azure Lane is identical. An alien force attacks Earth's oceans and only ship girls can face them. The only difference is Kantai Collection focuses on Japanese ships while Azure Lane has a full international roster. Again, send these boys to jail.
FBI, open up!
If you thought they would stop at warships, you were sorely mistaken. There also exists Girls Win Panzer for tanks, and Henkei Shoujo where girls transform into jets.
Brother, what's that?
So yeah, World of Tanks and World of Warplanes also got this venereal disease. Has anyone played World of Warplanes, by the way? I never did. I guess War Thunder really shut that shit down fast.
Shut the fuck up! Know your fucking place, trash!
So yeah, overall, Japanese anime that depict the Pacific War tend to focus on the anti-war trauma, glorifying the technology and innovations, sneak in some history lessons when they can, alongside cute anime girls. This episode is far too long. Now for a generic YouTube conclusion that I will read out.
Can you circle all the traffic lights, please?
What did you think of this wacky episode? Please comment down below what you want to hear more about in the future. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have a chance, you can check out my YouTube membership or my Patreon account at www.patreon.com/thepacificwarchannel, where you can get access to the exclusive podcast series, early access to all the content I make, and voting rights for the subjects I will tackle next. But until next time, this has been Craig from the Pacific War Channel, over and out. What did you think of this wacky episode? Please comment down below what you want to hear about from me. Fuck.